Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not
Two
kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
Today, we have a player who tries to control the newbie DM, a DM who finds a way to make the Red Wedding even worse, and a group who completely shuts down their DM. Need advice: beginner player or problem player? By Reddit user Himit Sohana. I joined a 5e group as a GM from r/LFG about a week ago, and we played our first session yesterday, but I'm starting to get more than a little concerned about one of my players. Some background. There's me, the GM, 13 female, Sorcerer, 14 male, Warlock, 15 male, Mystic, 18 male, Paladin, 18 male, and Ranger, the potential problem player, 18 male. Sorcerer and Warlock are total beginners, so new that I threw together a couple of one-shots to play as a sort of tutorial with them before the first session. They set up the group originally and had invited Ranger before me. He originally was going to GM for them, but decided that he'd rather be a player when I joined. The rest of the group have varying levels of experience. I've GM'd a couple of campaigns for my family, as well as a PvP campaign online, and an ongoing Pathfinder 1e campaign. And I started with my family as a player when I was 6 or 7, so I'm actually pretty knowledgeable about the system, though I know the Pathfinder better than 5e. Ranger has played a single campaign before, which he says fell apart, and a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. Paladin has some experience with tabletops, but doesn't know 5e super well, and has never used Roll20 before. Mystic is very experienced and has definitely been the most helpful player in a few different ways so far. I did way too much prep given less than a week to set up our first game, and I made sure to treat it as more of a session 0.5 than a session 1. We have a rules channel on our Discord, which includes a number of pretty generic expectations, and I also went over my and everyone else's expectations with our group before introducing characters. Just commend the GM, because for being, a 13-year-old, you're running the game really well. Very organized, you're making sure that everybody's communicating. Honestly, you're running it better than a lot of adults would.
Yeah, actually pretty good for someone so young. Doing very well.
Now the problems. Ranger rushed ahead to make our Discord server himself, and I had to ask him repeatedly to get permissions in it. It was another difficult ask for him to actually give me ownership of the Discord. 2. Ranger would often step in commandingly to try and answer questions about how the game would be run, and even questions about character creation for the players without consulting me at all. He also blatantly ignored the direction I gave in character creation, and got annoyed with other players for following it. It wasn't any kind of crazy ask, it was just telling players that they could make PCs different ages from each other's. 3. I posted images of some NPCs and PCs they would know, and Ranger repeatedly asked me about one's sexuality. 4. Ranger started a private group chat with the other PCs to come up with plans, etc. that I would not be privy to. He only asked me if this was okay after Mystic asked him if he had. I later found out that he lied and told Mystic that he did ask me before he actually did ask me. 5. In the private group chat, he told other PCs that it would be good to befriend the Owlin NPC because he thinks the Owlin would make a good boyfriend for his character. I initially said that romance is acceptable, but only off-screen, since I'm not comfortable with that kind of roleplay. 6. In the first game, I had to repeatedly stop him from backseat GMing. He also regularly took over the spotlight, even accidentally putting himself in scenes that his character isn't in. 7. He kept trying to world build in his RP, even going so far as to ad-lib parts of his backstory that he thought would impress the Owlin NPC. I'm worried that I'm being a little paranoid, especially after one session, so I'm coming here for a second opinion. New player, pretending to be more confident than they really are, or problem player. Edit. In a short discussion with Ranger where he suggested the only reason people were uncomfortable with this romance instance was because of homophobia. One of our agreed rules bans any kind of racism, sexism, homophobia, etc., and everyone in the server eagerly agreed to it, and went on to deflect and shift the goalposts on everything else. He's been banned and blocked. Thank you for the help.
Okay, the first big thing I have to jump on right here is that this guy is an 18-year-old dude and the GM is a 13-year-old girl. It's massively problematic that he's pushing her in this way, and also refusing to cool it when it comes to his romantic interests in the game after this underage girl said she's not okay with that being in the game and having to roleplay it. That's a massive boundary push even for an adult, but even more for a child.
Yeah, I feel like he thinks that because she's young, he can take advantage of that because she talked to him and he was just trying to deflect and shift the goalposts and all that. So it's sort of like you see the fact that you have somebody who's young and inexperienced, even though you're more inexperienced, and you just try to run with it. It just feels almost like he's just trying to bulldoze her.
Yeah, absolutely. She's more experienced than he is when it comes to D&D here, at least according to what she says there. So, by all rights, she does know better, and he should be listening to her and respecting her boundaries.
Honestly, I have to say I am impressed all around with OP just because she just sort of seems mature beyond her years in some ways, because I don't even know if I could have stood up to a player like that, and I'm not 13.
One of the things I do have a problem with here is the fact that they created a separate group chat to discuss strategy outside the game. I get it discussing strategy in the game, and you may have casual discussions outside, but to be actively planning outside the game like that, I don't think that's really in the spirit of the game because it's an in-character thing. I know it's not against the rules, it just doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of the game.
Yeah, I think that it's okay to do that if it's okay with the DM. Like, in one of my games, our DM, she would be like, okay, you've got a week to figure out your strategy, and encourage us to talk to each other outside of just the main discourse. But she was the one that said that it was okay. OP here didn't get asked, and then Ranger had to retroactively ask her, and that's not okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If the DM okays it, then it can be okay. Maybe it's just a personal thing. It's just, to me, that's something to be role-played in-game. And if you do it outside, you risk being a bit too meta-gamey.
If everybody's okay with it and on board with it, then fine, do it. But don't create a secret group chat and then only ask when somebody else is like, oh, hey, did you ask the DM about this? That's sneaky. That just feels sneaky.
However, overall, the biggest problem for me here is the fact that the GM is a 13-year-old girl and the dude is not respecting her boundaries when it comes to romantic roleplay. Obviously, this guy's character is a gay man, so I don't know if he is himself, so maybe there wouldn't be anything untoward directly aimed at the GM, but the GM would still have to roleplay stuff she's not comfortable with. That's a big red flag, and then hiding behind the accusation of homophobia when she says she's not comfortable is really not okay.
Yeah, whether or not the character is gay, it's your role-playing a romance with somebody who is under the age of consent.
DM rips off the Red Wedding in a disgusting way by Reddit user with a taste. So me and a group of friends have been playing D&D on and off again for about a decade. We generally alternate between two forever DMs. But about 5 years ago, our group's That Guy had been begging us for about a year to DM. We were all reluctant because he tended to roll up murder hobos and creeps exclusively. Our DM at the time said, "Bro, you're just gonna build a murder fantasy campaign." But he insisted and even typed up like 10 pages of lore on a world he was working on. Basically a campaign set in a post-apocalyptic world that was once temperate but is now becoming colder and colder for unknown reasons and slowly strangling civilization. The idea sounded awesome, so we told him we could give him a chance provided the other DMs talked to him about the principles of DMing, i.e. discouraging selfish behaviour, allowing players to help guide the story, etc, etc. So after that campaign ended, That Guy became our DM, and 2 other players came to join our campaign, bringing it to 5 players. Orc Wizard, Dwarf Artificer, Human Bard, Dragonborn Fighter, and me, Half-Elf Paladin. This campaign initially went really well. The story was engaging and the BBEG was compelling. Basically, our enemy was an evil paladin serving the god who cursed this world. For about 3 months, we were able to work with the DM to tell this story. It was particularly fun for me to represent a paladin on the side of the god directly opposing the BBEG's god. But around 3 months in, things started to change. I think we might have inadvertently derailed the campaign by exploring a dungeon too early and allowing Orc Wizard to murder a priest who was supposed to help us. But the game just started getting progressively staler as I think the DM didn't know how to get us out of the weird detour we took.
Rule 101 of DMing, expect your players not to do what you expect them to do. If they detour, and you just gotta roll with it.
I believe the old saying goes that 3 things are certain in life: death, taxes, and parties going completely off course. They will do what you don't expect of them from time to time, and you have to be prepared for that as a DM.
Yeah, that's literally just comes with the territory of DMing.
Yeah, you should always have some random encounters in the bag or something in place to try and get them back on course if they're not going where you expect it.
Yeah, after all, you are the GM, and sometimes you need to railroad them back into the main campaign. I'm not saying you have to do it all the time, but sometimes a little teeny tiny bit of railroading will help you out a lot.
And because we started getting very little direction from the DM or his world, we ended up going off to random cities that turned out to have nothing to do with the campaign. They didn't even have compelling side plots or alternative hooks. I remember even talking to the DM about this, and he denied there was a problem and said we'd get going again. But months kept passing, and he honestly seemed to lose interest, as did the group. After some of us expressed some desire to run a couple of one-shots, which is usually our group's code for let's consider starting a new campaign. Weird, I know, but we usually don't just randomly start up one-shots.
See, I feel like what happened here is that the GM sort of like didn't plan all the way till 3 months out worth of campaign. It was like once they derailed, he was sort of like, I don't know what to do now. And honestly, I don't think they even derailed that badly. I think he just ran out of material, honestly.
Oh yeah, he clearly didn't have enough prepared between where they started and the end points. However, given what OP has said, there's a few tricks the DM could very easily have used to get them back on course. They could have literally just encountered NPCs on the road who they talked to and said, oh, there's something really interesting in this city, you should go there instead. Oh, there's work in this city. It could be as simple as that. Or there is the case of any city is the right city. If the party are insistent on not going to the city you planned on, have them encounter what was going to be there in the city they're heading to. There's a lot of tricks as the GM you can use to get the party back on course when they're this far off the track that you wanted them to be on.
When in doubt, pull out a random NPC.
We didn't finalize anything, but the next session the DM had us run into a noble named Henry Minnie, who was planning a wedding for his daughter and a foreign lord to solidify their resistance against the BBEG. And the session after that, we attended the wedding hoping that this would reinvigorate the game. Well, during the wedding, Henry walked his daughter down the aisle and disappeared. The DM noticed this, so we asked if we noticed, and he said our passive perception was too low. We as a group were kind of thinking, oh no, is he doing like a red wedding type thing? If only. The priest married the couple and shuffled them off as eerie music started playing and the doors started closing. We all kind of chuckled and were like, yep, it is. But as the music stopped, a bunch of our men stood up and attacked our retinue and our party as we expected, as we had to roll initiative to fight them. There was way too many, and we got downed as we started thinking, is he really going to end the campaign with a TPK? But he decides to go another route, a TPR. As the party and our retinue were downed, Henry's soldiers mass SA not only our retinue, but the party. The SA is apparently so intense that counts as a failed death saves and we die. At this point, the party was like, WTF? And another player said, you could have just ended the campaign. Why sour what was one time a good campaign with this BS? And I chimed in and said, yeah, can we just retcon it and have the campaign end on a cliffhanger? And DM was like, come on guys, you're being way too sensitive. It was a funny way to end the campaign that was going stale. Y'all were tired of it too, don't lie. We then went back and forth over this, and one player oddly enough took DM's side. To resolve this, we all sort of on our own made up our own canon ending, and agreed not to let him DM again. Luckily he never asked again. The one lesson we learned is that having a good premise and lore doesn't make you a good DM. You need to adapt with your players, and it goes without saying not to end a campaign like that. TLDR. DM has trouble adapting to the campaign going off the rails, so he ends it by having the party get mass SA'd.
I don't even know what to say, honestly. That's just such a petty way to deal with players who are dissatisfied with your campaign. It just feels personal.
Yeah, you know that cliff we keep talking about campaigns going off? This DM didn't even try to hit the brakes and instead hit the throttle going towards it.
He didn't even look back. I understand being a little bit upset because your players aren't appreciating something that you worked hard to build. But at the end of the day, like, the campaign had gone stale and he didn't know what he was doing. And so either you take that as a note when you realize your players are unhappy, or you say, yeah, you know what, I kind of ran out of material, let's move on from this.
Yeah, at the end there, the DM even acknowledged himself that the campaign had gone stale and wasn't worth continuing. You see, the whole Red Wedding TPK, I could understand that potentially with the right party. Some players would be cool and think that was a fun, fantastic way to end the campaign and just put a full stop on it and move on. But the TPR is just brutal and unnecessary, and it really makes me concerned as to why they would even be okay continuing playing with this guy at this point. You don't put that in Unless it's in your mind. Not stuff like that.
It really does feel like he was just being salty about everything because he was like, what? The campaign had gone stale. Y'all thought so. Don't lie. Like, that really feels like somebody who wasn't ready to admit that the campaign had actually gone stale out loud and was basically throwing their dissatisfaction back at them. The players want to limit DM influence by Reddit user Grand Red Larceny. So this is something that has never really happened to me before. I've been a DM for a while, not extremely experienced or anything like that, but I've run a few games. A few weeks ago, I started talking to someone I know, and they mentioned that they had a group of friends looking for a DM, and asked if I could do it. Since I really like D&D, I didn't think twice and said sure. I met with this group for a session 0 of sorts to discuss what they were looking for in a game. Here's what they told me. They wanted someone to run Curse of Strahd for them, which is fine. That's one of my favorite modules. But there were problems that came up. I told them that I'd be happy as Curse of Strahd I would be happy to, as Curse of Strahd actually has a lot of variables and ways to make things interesting. That's when the player stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Before we start, I want to make sure that you're running it for us without change. I want you not to influence the module at all. Don't even change a comma. I hate it when DMs think that they know better than the folks at D&D.
Okay, there's an immediate red flag. Now, the folks at D&D at Wizards of the Coast are pretty knowledgeable, the general staff are. But let's be honest, these days it's quite easy to know better than them as a company.
That was strange to say the least, but I understand wanting to run something as it was intended, and I said I would definitely follow the module. However, the player continued, "No. You shouldn't even use a dialogue that isn't in the module, okay? That is how D&D is meant to be played. Also, you need to roll dice out in the open for us to see." Things felt really strange to me. I know I'm not experienced or anything, but this didn't feel normal. So I asked them plainly what they were expecting of me, and the other player, who seemed to be speaking for the group, said, "We hate it when DMs abuse their power and manipulate the world. That's why we only play modules and make sure that the DMs don't change a single thing from them." I imagine my expression didn't seem too good when he said that, because what followed were a bunch of complaints about DMs, and for me it sounded way too close to player versus DM mentality. It went on for a while, but there was no way that I was DMing for them. I barely experienced enough to deal with normal players, and to me, this is definitely not normal. Honestly, at this point, they were expecting me to be an AI simulator for the game with a voice, which is not at all what I'm looking for. I told them that, and that we weren't going to be a good fit. As expected, they didn't like my response and started to angrily shout that I was wasting their time and that I wasn't a true DM, etc. That being said, I will no longer be DMing for this group, or for anyone else that this friend of mine introduces me to. I'm just glad it didn't go beyond session 0.
Okay, yeah, that party is definitely the ones who have no idea what D&D is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the exact opposite of what they think it is. Free-forming, guided by the players, able to go off script. It's more of what you want it to. These guys just wanted a video game, or something even more restricted than a video game. They weren't even going as far as wanting a choose-your-own-adventure book. I don't even know why they even wanted a DM, to be honest, at this point.
They should have just had a voice recording reading out the module and then they do all the roles for the DM.
Yeah, exactly. If the DM's not allowed to read anything that isn't written down and is going to roll out in the open, why do you even need one? Just run it yourselves and pre-record the voice lines. That's it. That's all you need to do to run it the way they want it.
I get DMs that will go off the rails and try to manipulate the game against players. There are DMs that do that, and we've read a few horror stories of DMs that do that. This is kind of a big overcorrection to say we're not doing anything outside the module. You have to do all the dialogue from the module, nothing more, nothing less. You have to roll everything out in the open to keep everything above board. Okay, calm down, guys.
Going to show my age here, but they might as well have just had a DM on cassette. One of those types of board games that came with a video cassette of a recording like this that would guide you through the game. That's basically what they should have had.
But I agree with OP that this definitely reeked of player versus DM mentality, and that is a very dangerous territory to get into, either as a DM or as a player, because it really ruins the game.
Yeah, that's really the only way I can rationalize this, is that the players may have had a bad experience before with a DM who was terrible and went off script so massively and derailed the campaign so it felt completely wrong, or a DM who was out to get them and, TPK'd them for the lols, but they're reacting way too harsh the other way and not letting the DM. OP definitely dodged a bullet here. So here we have another special treat for you. We have some more fan art. This one comes to us from Tiny Bird Home. You can find them on TikTok. It's amazing. We love it. We love how almost unhinged our faces are. Thank you so much for sending us this. If you'd like to send us some fan art, send us a story or a joke, you can do it at the email address in the description.
Hey, Hugh.
Yes, man.
How many barbarians does it take to screw in a light bulb?
I don't know. How many does it?
4. 3 to figure out what the heck a light bulb is, and 1 to spend a rank to get it done.
And with that, we have definitely not been two kobolds in a trench coat. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.